Welcome to the Motley Croc Show. Man, it seems like time just keeps on flying on me because I feel like I was just here not too long ago. Hope everybody can hear me okay. If you can hear me okay, please let me know in the comments. As always, having the backstage, Britt Barbieri, formerly Britt Investigates. But let's have some fun. What's up, B?
Hi. Trying to fix my light.
That's okay. I was just trying to figure out what we had going on here with signal, and I every time we get cloud cover or something, I get a little bit of problems. So for the most part, we're doing pretty good. What's up, Craig? Good to see you.
Hey, Craig.
I'm glad you can hear me. Sometimes, I get these weird little things, and when my headphones act up on me, and then I can't hear, and then we can't do a lot of different things. So it is what it is.
All good.
Jeff, I think Jeff will be here. I sent him the link, so he should have it. He should be coming in pretty soon, I hope.
Awesome.
He could be working. Sometimes he gets busy working. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and I'd like to try to touch on and squeeze in, and really just find out how everything else has been going. Anything new come up in the crypto world, Brittany? We can start off with why people are starting to come in, or
not really. There's been I'm so over AI videos, so there's been a lot of new ridiculous videos that have come out that I've been tagged in that people think are authentic and real, and I hate bursting the bubbles, but I'm like, no, this is definitely faked. This is definitely but it's just ruining a lot. So there's a ton coming out, man, in all different genres. Yeah, in the cryptid space, it's getting out of control.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Alleged trail camera videos of strange cryptid walking by trail camera. And the AI is super impressive where you look at it and you're like, that's really cool. I'm looking at a horror movie kind of thing. I'm like, this is really cool.
Right.
But then I'm like, did that thing just shapeshift into having 6 legs and now it's back to 4? Because the AI
I really think that's cool. I'm always kind of iffy in the form of the crypto stuff. I really want to be convinced. I really want to see stuff. It's not that I'm going to say to everybody, oh, it's not real, because I really don't believe that either. I think there's stuff out there that's called crypto that shouldn't be called crypto.
100%.
I think everything starts getting lumped in with paranormal and crypto. But when I hear paranormal, I guess I'm old school. I just think of spiritual work, spirits, ghosts, hauntings, etc. I don't think of Bigfoot as paranormal, but a lot of people do. I don't think of alien, but a lot of people go, yes, he is. The aliens sent him here, and he's an interdimensional being, and he comes from the other dimensions. I'm like, okay, everybody can believe what they want. There's the forest sprite and the rock munchkins and all this kind of stuff, and you see all this stuff and you're like, kind of, so for any type of reality in that industry would be very hard when you've got a bunch of yahoos at the stage contaminating it. It's I hate to compare it to this, but when pornography was big in the 90s all the way up into the mid 2000s, then it got so oversaturated with stuff that just was outrageously done that it was there was no, it's so saturated now, there's no money in the porn industry as a rule there used to be because of that. So it's the same thing here. You've got this. I did talk to your friend, Brooke Moreland, a little bit about Sasquatch being a religion to a lot of people. Yeah. It's a religion. They think of these things as religion. And she was, just dabbling into, I'm not saying she said that's what she believes or that it's what it is. I just said, she talked to me about people looking at that like a religion. And that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
I can see that a lot in different areas of different festivals and conventions and things like that. When you see a lot of these individuals, it gives the same, I want to say backing or community gathering feel of a cult, a religious type of cult movement, or the occult or something, when people really got all into, what was the name of that Rocky Horror Picture Show? Remember how everybody had
cult, has a cult
following. Yeah. So that's kind of there are areas of the Bigfoot community.
Cult. You're saying cult, not occult, but cult.
Yeah. A cult following. Yeah.
Yeah. The occult would be different, but yes, a cult following for sure.
Yeah. A cult following.
Yeah. I can see why people would. I don't know, man, because I think we're always intrigued with things that we don't know a whole lot about. And I think that when it comes down to that type of stuff, I think, you want to be into that, and people want to be into that kind of thing. And I mean, mean, yeah, it would be cool to see stuff like that. I guess that's why monsters are cool and, dinosaurs are cool, because it's just something you want to be part of, and I think that there's a lot to be said about that too. So, you can see why people get into the cons, any con.
Yeah.
For example. It's just when you take it to the one good thing about it, if it was a Bigfoot religion, if there is one, I'm going to have to look into that now. But if there's a Bigfoot religion, at least there's not going to be any mercy killings or beating your wife or, any of that kind of stuff. It'll be a different, God said Bigfoot's not, kick your ass, bitch. Why don't you give me an energy drink? I don't think any of that's going to be happening. But I mean, that's kind of a good thing too. But, I think it should be labeled more as a passion and not a religion, just something that you, maybe religiously do. But yeah, people are converting that. I mean, there's so much weird stuff. I mean, there's no sense of reality, I don't think, too much anymore.
Not anymore.
I mean,
it's really jaded. It's jaded on between what is reality anymore. Especially with how fast we're moving with technology and AI. We are leaps and bounds, probably much further ahead than the public is even aware, by just some of the leaking that comes out from time to time on what they're working on. And it's are they just preparing us because they're listen, we've been working on this for the last decade and now we're going to release it, but we have to do it in small doses to prepare the public, right. It's just so much. And it's I do think why fantasy and that genre succeeds so well is because we are kind of in a weird point in history where we aren't sure what's real and what isn't real. So when you see these fantasy films, it kind of for a 2 hour, if it's a movie, it's 2 hours, you're somewhere else and you're not thinking about the reality of the world you're in today because it doesn't feel real. So it's
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because it's but then you'll see a movie and then you leave and then you'll go home and read an article and you're wait a minute. This is really similar to the movie we just watched on Netflix or, in AMC. I don't like this. What's real anymore? What's not?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of, introduction from the media, like any type of major media, HBO, Paramount, Peacock, CBS, NBC. There's going to be, especially with movies, I think there's such a big draw to get everybody away from Hollywood, this and that. And I'm sure there's some corruption in there and stuff, but you also don't want to be one of them nut jobs that think everything about the entertainment, because movies and entertainment are a lot of fun. And I don't think that every single person out there is in there. What I was getting at was, I think they introduced to the public a lot of ideas and or options that would be, it's more easy to accept when it's in a movie. You're kind of in a relaxed state. You're watching a movie or you're in a hype state. It just depends on what the movie is, but you're kind of in a relaxed state and you're kind of taking in the information that's being played before you. And, then your mind's wow. Because I think the thing is with movies and certain types of shows are to kind of get away with, the fairy tale side of it, if you will. So your mind's always man, if that was real. So then if you saw it, you've seen it before, your brain has a tendency to be different. And I think there's a lot to that. I think they add a lot of stuff that
I can agree with that.
Normally wouldn't be there.
Well, and two, it's I do think there are certain films that are infiltrate is not the right word, but it's scripted in a sense with information that will soon be provided to the public. And they have to put it in a certain way. Because everybody always likes to talk about Time Cop and how he basically had an iPad and iPhones. You know what I mean? Everything was done through these little pads and things like that. And then I look back, I'm oh man, that's right. How strange. And then it was just a few years later, this technology and stuff started coming out. So I still feel that in some films,
right,
certain information is given to us, so it subconsciously goes in and we're not so fearful of it when it comes to fruition or to light, robots taking over the world in Terminator.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. I mean, there's so many. Hold on,
it's a ton.
And I think that there's a lot of really crazy things that they introduced that may or may not be real. I remember the movie Time Cop in the 80s with Van Damme.
Yeah.
And I swear, when you watch that, he had a tablet and he would go back in time and he would arrest criminals before they committed a crime. Which I thought was weird. Why don't you just go back and try to stop them before they do it? And, go further back to where something went wrong to lead them to that, but they made it more interesting.
Yeah, it's actually I actually like that movie. I thought it was. I mean, Van Damme was really good. All of his movies are always fun to watch. But Time Cop, I always liked because it was just like I liked the concept of the film. I just liked the idea of the film. Like it was so cool.
Yeah,
it was neat. So was The Fifth Element. That was another movie I really enjoyed. Bruce
Fifth
Willis.
Element was good.
Yeah.
Craig said that Hollywood used to have visionaries that reflect movies and TV. They do, Craig. They did too, and they still do. They got The Simpsons. Let's not forget that. You know what I mean?
True. That's true.
Let's not forget The Simpsons.
The Simpsons are eerie at sometimes how accurate they are.
What's up, Seth?
Hey, Seth.
I appreciate you, man. Look forward to seeing you.
Like it's Hey,
Judy.
Like sometimes it's a little too weird.
Samantha. Thank you. I'm glad. It's called not being lazy and taking care of yourself and eating more correctly and doing stuff. So backwards 15 years. Thank you. That's I appreciate that. I'll take that. I'll take it. Or it's like I'm kind of like, I have stand-ins. Maybe it's not really me.
Maybe it's a synthetic version of you, a robotic.
But yeah, thank you, Samantha. I appreciate that. I hope you're doing well. And thanks for coming in tonight. But yeah, I think there's a lot of I guess I haven't watched in a while. Troy looks like age back. Yeah. Okay. I've aged back 15 years. Hey, I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah, we're just talking about a lot of stuff that they introduce into movies and stuff. And I think that there's a lot to it. I mean, I think that they're more advanced. What you see in movies is probably more of a real reflection of what goes on that we don't have the technology into it yet. What's up, Bill? Good to see you. And I think that, as I've been a kid, I'm hoping movies like, Terminator and stuff don't come to fruition, even though it looks like it is. I mean, I feel bad saying that because I think in the time I'll be dead because I'm the 15 years thing was a compliment, but I'm actually really old. And that's me.
I actually think that seeing something like the Terminator would be in your time life. Like I really do.
Not in my timeline.
I think it would.
I think your children's life's going to be horrible. I think there's going to be times that they're locked in a burning house and there's going to be AI generated things taken over and they're trying to get their way out of it. I think that's their line. I hope when that took place in Terminator.
God, I hope not.
We're gone. I'm too old. I'll long be gone. You'll probably see the cusp bed, but you'll be in some hospital bed, not able to help them.
Oh, that's going to make me feel real great.
You're going to look out the window and you're going to see these huge explosions and all this kind of stuff going off. And you know what's going down, So
and I know I have to leave them with all that. Like that's not how I want to go. No.
But I'm not going to sit here as I'm not going to also rag on myself. I'm not an idiot. I've done really well for myself in life. And
hi, Sean.
I may not look a certain to some people in a sense. What's up, Sean? In a sense, it is uplifting, Judy. Let me get to it. But unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of shit like that. I think that we have to deal with, and I don't necessarily. I think there's a lot of, that's why I say all the time, I'm not really political. I just live in my own realm, and there's things I like and don't like, and I don't care. But those things to me seem like smoke screens because I think there's much worse things going on. My mind
that thinks, I agree.
My mind thinks, everybody's getting along really good. It's over. They're taking care of themselves is what's happening. They're all, we all love each other. Yeah. They're like this. They're all up top. And, down here, there's going to be a bunch of not micro setting a nuclear reactor on 3 missiles. Uh-oh. That's funny. Ashley, it's so crazy. Terminator won't happen if AI becomes self-aware. Well, obviously it will be oblivious to our existence. That's really cool. That's a pretty assessment. I hope so. Let's stick with Craig's thing tonight. Round of applause. Thank you, Craig. We're feeling so much better. But I mean, I think that
turning it into a positive.
There's probably something bigger going on. Building stuff in space and all this kind of stuff. And then which talking to people, even talking with Brooke and stuff, that manufactured fear. A lot of what you see is manufactured fear. I'm not talking about just aliens. I'm talking about everything.
Yeah.
From politics to riots to people crying online. That's all manufactured fear. And it just funnels this food source down to these little goggling baby, blah, 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 and they just eat it up. Eat it up. And then next thing, everybody's angry and they're all killing the fellow man.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't come starting that shit around here.
Fear control.
I'm not telling you that I'm not defending my land, my animals, and my property. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I'm not angry enough to go out and burn down a city. But there's been a few times that we go out and stuff. Jeff, are you here, buddy? Can you are you coming in? Are you working? Just let me know. And what's this? What do you say?
Hi, Jesse.
Hey, Jesse Black. Good to see you, buddy. What's up? Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you think about that kind of stuff, man, like I think there's like a big smoke screen and all that manufactured hatred. You know, you see it in industry, you see it in media, you see it in music, you see it in TV, and it's finally made its way to the general public. I mean, I remember coming up, Jesse Black probably remember this too, Craig. You know, when the rap scene picked up big in the late 1980s, man. Once that started taking off, there was literal hatred and beef between each sides of the gangs, the coastlines, East Coast, West Coast, and a lot of it was manufactured. And there were young people, all colors. Not just black folk. It was white, Chinese, Indian, Jewish people. Everybody got into that hip hop scene, which was great. I did. NWA is probably one of the best rap groups out there to me. I thought they were awesome. I loved Eazy-E. God rest his soul. Great shit. However, I didn't have a flag in that fight, but people got into that and it was manufactured fear, right?
Yeah.
That the beef that was going on between these actual producers and labels was not the beef of the urban teenager. But if somebody was wearing a Tupac shirt and someone saw a Biggie, then they're fighting here, and then Eazy-E broke away, and then NWA split, and it was all this. They were having business problems, right? And then it turned into an all-out war. But people who didn't have any dog in that fight got involved, and it was manufactured fear. Start making TV, start making MTV news, and start making local news. You know, Two Live Crew, another awesome to me. Vulgar but awesome band. Loved them. I loved getting caught with them when I was a kid. And they're like, "What are you doing with that dirty CD?" You know, he's a honey. I love the Two Live Crew, but they were banned in the USA, so they took the riff of the Band in the USA from Bruce Springsteen, and instead of Born in the USA, it was Band in the USA. And they started this whole thing, and they started moving freedom of speech. So there's so many smoke screens and so many different types of things that happen. You know, even in your cryptid world or even in the animal world. You know, it's just. Hold on, Jeff. I got you, buddy. I'm going to take care of Jeff real quick. Even in the cryptid world, I just think it's one of those things that, you just have to deal with in any industry. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like, though, like you were just mentioning back then, and I think we forget about the fear control, too. But I just feel like... Jeff. I just feel like it's intensifying even more so now, more than ever, because social media has made it worse and more like easier to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Like it's just intensifying in every aspect of every area and field, like everywhere. And it's funny, like you mentioned, even if you didn't have a dog in the fight, you still got angry. You know what I mean? And it's like that literally happens today in so many different avenues. It happens so often, but it is a control. Like it's a literal control of the public. Is creating that fear, because fear ultimately becomes a control. It's insane to me. Like,
all right, I've sent two, Jeff. Same copy to you from Brittany too. It is, and it's a sense that people start getting really upset with it, and I understand, but I still love media, and I still like how they use it. You know, there's
positives with it, as well as negatives, but positives with it.
Thank you, Tara. I'm always trying to throw you for a loop. Oh, what's up, Matthew? Good to see you, brother. I got to reach out to Matt too, off of here too. I want to talk to him, but I think that it's suicidal tendencies. By the way, all I want is a Pepsi. Nobody knows who that is. Jeff, again, bro. I did send that to you, to your cell phone. So I don't know if there's another place you want me to send it to you. I can try. If you want to text me an email address, I'll copy that link again. But it is right to you. It's the same link. It's the one Brittany's got. So you should be in. That really sucks.
So here's a question I have for you, Troy, because this is like a thought-provoking, right? And it comes from the movie that just came out with they were like robot people. What was the one? I can't think of the name. And if anybody can remember, it literally just came out now, and they were trying to go after the child. And they were basically like, he has to be terminated, right? Because he was like, there was something about him that was going to change the future. And they were like, this child has to be terminated. The robot child. Just going to preference that again, the robot child. Anyway, I don't remember the name of the movie. It was more recent in the last couple of years. I wanted to see it, but I knew I'd probably cry my eyes out. So I haven't seen it yet. But my question is.
All right, Jeff, that's fine. Just log in when you get it, buddy.
This becomes like no, it's okay. This becomes like an ethical question. So like if robots, because now through recent studies, they're actually starting to comprehend things.
Right.
So we're like, if you want to use a different robotic company, because Mom and I were actually talking about this earlier today and she brought it to my attention, but like if like there was a test with computers and this computer system basically told these other robots that they wanted to go with these other robots and it became conniving. It started making up lies about the other robotic company so that they wouldn't go with the other robots and they would only continue to use them. So it means that they're self-aware and they're utilizing tools that we do. So what happens if the robots that we make, like let's say like Tesla's, their robots are really cool, right? Or the Disney robots that are human-like.
Okay.
What if they start to evolve to have these type of synthetic emotions similar to us, right? Through their biochemistry and coding, and they start to evolve within their own domain and become individuals. Do they now have their own rights to where we can't just, because what thought provoked me with this one is like, the first step to Mars was they're sending up these robots to build everything on Mars before the humans go.
Okay.
But it's like, if these robots are learning feelings, emotion, and understanding and comprehension and so forth, a lot like we are through mimic and understanding and developing and advancing and evolving their code on their own, is it unethical for us to force them to go to Mars to do labor without a consent? Because are they more like us, where they are conscious, or do we still look at them as they're nothing than just a robot? Like it's such a weird.
That is a deep thing. Radio just announced that there was a poll and 83% of women said they would rather marry AI than a real person.
Sweet Jesus.
Depends on, who's programming.
Thank you, Samantha.
Because remember, AI can only learn. That's why I say please and thank you just in case. Oh my God. I love ethics. Yeah. So here's the deal.
And I want to hear your thought on this because it has really.
Listen, I don't really have a thought that might be anything crazy. But when you think about, man, how can I say that? You're talking about is it ethical if you made it? That's like saying, well,
how do something like that?
Conscious is still, as far as we know, artificial conscious. Okay, we're not getting into the organic part of life where there's humans and there's not humans. There's animals and then there's stuffed animals. Okay.
Right.
So that becomes, and a lot of people that could be a religious thing, but that becomes that now that's more of a universe, spiritualism, religious view on consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because the consciousness that I'm aware of is an energy. It's an energy caused by chemicals in the brain. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Angie?
Hi, Ange.
So, like Ricky Rocket was talking, like they've been finding now that your conscious is in your brain matter. So if you, off yourself or unlife yourself, I gotta be careful what I say so I don't get botted out of here. And your organic matter that sits inside your skull, that real stuff that looks like thick spaghetti noodles, is all over the wall back here. How long is your consciousness in there before every cell? And so if your consciousness is in your cell, before all that blood dries up and dies off, how long do the cells live dry? We wouldn't even know, but they're saying your consciousness. That means you're fully aware of what you just done and you're visualizing it somehow. Right. So they say. And so thinking about that, no, as of right now, a robot going to work for, there's two bad parts of that. We still have human beings that want to work, right? That need to make a living. So I still think while we can for certain types of jobs, we need to use human beings because human beings are important. It gives them purpose. There's a lot of talent in farming. There's a lot of talent in different types of, building, construction. There's talent in that. I think that it's okay that there's some androids performing surgeries. It takes the mistakes that the human can make out, but and the one thing right now, you're right, Bill, that robot lacks emotion to help make decisions, right? Unless as of now. Well, not necessarily as of now, but as necessarily is if you find a way to recreate conception. I'm trying to put this in a way that I can make it so, like, upon the little semen guy, he's working his heart out. Oh man, little eye of the tiger, he's swimming down, man. He's going up that river. Other motherfuckers are getting killed off. It's all fucking war. He gets in this egg, and there he is, right? There we go. And so the bottom line is, if that happens and you can recreate the spark of life, or now you've trapped the soul in some sort of a unit, may not be may not be a biological, it may be cyber. But if you figure out a way to trap that soul, now you've got everything that a spirit would possess. That's my theory. Then it has emotion, right?
Okay.
So if you can track that emotion to the spirit, right? We're not taking this to religious or anything. That the emotion is a human construct for sure. But if you figure out a way to trap that, see, I'm thinking if we have a spirit, unless you're a complete atheist, you believe in absolutely nothing, and you don't believe in anything, that's fine. But if you do have some sort of, my energy from this vessel goes into another dimension or a different universe, however you want to look at it, if it gets pulled in again to the human to come out, we're all different. We know this. So if you can trap that in a cyber way, then you're dealing with a separate thing. Like you've taken this person, me, you, Matthews, any of us in here, Jeff's, and we put it into something that's synthetic, but it's really our consciousness. Then now we have a thing. Right. Now we have a thing. What's up, Heidi?
Well, it's interesting because we've talked about this before in the past, and I know it's kind of like a little crazy to talk about.
It's taught jealousy, Judy. Man, why can't Jeff get in here? Keep talking, Brittany. I just want to look at something.
No, that's okay. So we're gonna go back to the original, so when they started doing like the sex dolls, robotic sex dolls, these dolls were programmed and fully aware of the relationship that they were in. Something that they were noticing during the coding process of evolution of each doll is they all had their own personalities. Code the dolls to what you wanted them to be. And this is, you can look this up. They actually did an interview on them. I think you can find it on YouTube, because what happened after a period of time, because the owner himself had a doll, and I don't remember her name, but her own robotics started to evolve when other female dolls became accessible to him. So she became jealous. She became insecure. He did not program her this way. She started questioning their relationship and if she was enough for him. He, again, did not program her this way. She started to evolve from conversations that they had been having, from learning from him. So her code was recoding and learning from him. And he didn't program her this way. So he even was like really shocked, because he said, this is not how this code works. But when we went inside her coding, she had recoded herself from actually learning what jealousy meant and was applying it to her own life of not being the only female in his life, which was so fascinating, because this doll is learning human-like emotions, but taking them on as her own and feeling that they are hers. And this was a robotic doll.
Gotcha.
Just so fascinating, because this doll is learning human-like emotions, but taking them on as her own.
Jeff, I hear you, but I'm still hearing Brittany talking, so we've got like a lag for you.
Doll.
Gotcha. You hear she's still talking about lags.
Because this doll is learning. That's weird. Like emotions, but taking
them because he's behind, because he came in.
I hear you, but I'm still hearing Brittany talking, so we've got like a lag for you.
Come out.
Gotcha.
You hear she's still. I just muted him for a second until he can check it out and see if he can catch up. He's going to come back in.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so I think then there's a major study going on behind the scenes, and there are a few articles in it that are seeing that these robotics are starting to learn and recode their own makeup.
Or so they say.
Well, but I mean, it's been proven. So you can't disprove how the function and the numbers work. And that's the scary part, that they're saying, how do we harness and control this from continuing to happen? Samantha. When they're talking to each other, when these computers and these robots can begin to talk to each other and create a even if it's a simulated consciousness between the two of them to make decisions, where does that stop? Like, these articles are really fascinating to read, because you're learning that the coding is actually evolving itself.
Yeah, but they still need to have it programmed. That's the thing.
Right. But like I was saying with the sex doll, the owner even said she was not coded that way. She began to learn and listen.
Yeah, that's
so that's the tricky. There's these case scenarios where they're starting to evolve and have human thought on their own and code themselves.
Right. From maybe like Matthew's saying too, Craig, like from initial programming. So
right. Evolving
it's
from that
taught
first.
in there because they're uploading all that kind of stuff into that. So sure, it's gonna grow off knowledge. It's really too close to
tricky.
It's like too close to home, actually. It's a really interesting, I was reading that thing you sent me that in the future, death may be an option.
Yes.
And if they keep generating AI bodies and stuff like that, and you can actually transport your consciousness, I mean, yeah. And it would be for me and Jeff before you, but we'd be able to pick a new body and come back and do our thing with all of our consciousness, which would be kind of cool. But it's going to be really expensive, so it's only going to be for the people.
I certainly won't
have the money.
I won't either, dude. But you know what I mean, man. You know what I mean.
I'd have to downgrade the body for what I could afford.
It's like
so that means we may be additionally programmed too. And this is why I say this, Matt. There are people. Now, this is a science thing, and we did talk about it with Marissa, but there are people now that are normal. They have a good time. They're successful in their life, and all of a sudden, they start suffering from anxiety. They start suffering from depression, really down all the time. And it's like goes back to their great grandfather in their coding. The struggle that they went through in their DNA has skipped generations, and then actually got into people. Like we all know that trauma in certain parts of your life, Matt and I have had plenty of conversations about anxiety and how it works. And, there are things that you go through in situations, but that means that if Matt ever has a child, right, with his DNA, that means 200 years from now, anything Matt went through that was traumatic, he's going to feel and not know why. Now that's science.
Right.
That's what's happening.
Right.
So there's a lot to that. And I think that that's really interesting too. So maybe we are, Matt, maybe we are initially programs in some other form or another, and this is where we're at right now. So Samantha, so you're saying that we would know we are switching bodies and yes, because you hear about people saying that their past life they were XYZ, but they knew technology will allow you to choose and still know. I would imagine, because if you could not die and you could keep your current consciousness, if me or Jeff could afford it and we go in, then Jeff would add all of his knowledge of his life, his family. He would just get to live longer with them. And then by the time his children got old and were ready to expire, or his partner, then they could get a new body. And these people, in essence, so the story of being a vampire, a daywalker, really isn't too far
off.
Isn't too far if you think about it. And, we don't even know. I mean, we don't know. I mean, where do these stories come from? That's a whole other thing. Where does this come from? Why are there stories that evolve? Why can the human mind come up with some amazing things that it's never seen before? So yes, maybe it is very applicable that AI could come up with its own conscience and decide on what it thinks based off what it's programmed with. Grow off
and
the
just
knowledge
evolving that programming.
Well, that's what humans do.
Yeah,
that's what humans do.
But that's what I was saying to begin with. Do they have their own rights then? Do we treat them like individuals? Like, where do they sit then in the factor of our world? That's where it gets tricky too.
Here we go. That's a moral decision,
right? So, but I'm saying like it's a tricky one because you go, where is the line?
There's going to be that's something I don't want to be part of.
Me either. It's like, oh my God, they're going to be making it's insane to me, but it's deep and it's a rabbit hole and it's scary.
Well, think about Neanderthal.
Scary. Yeah.
And then when they say that the Homo sapiens just appeared and colonized with them and then started becoming them, and that's why there's still people with Neanderthal bloodlines here from certain origins, even though there were humans that went. So kind of the same thing. Maybe A and I we're the Neanderthal, and AI is like a new. I mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, technically. I mean, in a way, it's. Hey
Noah, really how you doing?
Hi Noah. It's freaking. I don't know. It's one of those really deep food for thoughts because it's really freaking really tricky. It's just something I don't like thinking about. But then on the other side, it's like every day you hear more and more advancements. Just like I sent you the article about the little microbots that you can inject into your body now that throughout your life, they are going in and fixing everything and creating your life to live on forever.
For the elite. And I want to touch on that for the elite.
For the elite. But I'm
not
saying
for me.
You can get these little, but then I sit there and I go, do you really? I mean, they're tiny too. They're like the size of a flea. They inject them in, and the idea is that as you're living your life, things start coming up, cancer cells, diseases, any
Oh,
tears within the body, it'll go in and repair it, even in your brain.
There was a whole movie about that kind of shit too.
But now they're doing it, and it's coming.
They were probably doing it then. Matthew says, now in the ethics, so moral and ethics blur. We used to not give animal rights, and now we do. We used to not give women rights.
Mhm.
We used to not give homosexuals rights to get married. So that's a whole thing where now you have to decide who's making these ridiculous decisions. And that has to come into giving AI a right, depending on how AI is treating its current. I mean, it's all going to come down to how it's treating itself, what's going on with it, what it's doing, how it's purifying. So yeah, that's moral and ethics is interesting. Daniel Lopez, we're all programmed from the aliens. End of story. Yeah. Samantha, my DNA says I'm 20% Netherland. I mean, probably or Neanderthal. So you'll come from that part of the world, and I think that there's some Blade Runner AI beings. That was a great movie. If any of you haven't seen that, thank you, Matt. Of course, because that's what we used to do. As we come in with these creations, we create organizations or foundations. We call them either religion. Think of all the religious persecution now, right? But I bet if you talk to a super religious person, they wouldn't give a robot rights.
No, probably not.
Because they wouldn't believe it was a sentient being. So those are the kind of people you have to deal with. And I thought it was really good that some of the things you say now, some of the things that we glorify, that's way old is better than it is now. And then some of the stuff that we hate right now in this moment in life, things that we think were deemed evil or bad in the generations of us or our grandparents, just that small short right now. And like Marissa said, in 500 years, they'll glorify those villains.
Here's another question for you.
They'll glorify those villains. It just depends, because Genghis Khan was a villain.
Yeah.
An absolute villain. But I was just telling people today, just to say this, that they said he killed so many people in his career that he actually lowered the carbon dioxide.
You said that before. You told me that before.
So listen, and that was just him being an ass. It wasn't like he was doing any good. He was just on a rampage. He was like, he was one of those psychotic people of that time, but people glorify that now. And then anybody since then in history, in our time, any you can look at Saddam Hussein, Omar Gaddafi, Bin Laden, Adolf Hitler. When you really look into things, do we really know what Saddam Hussein was fighting? Or do we know what we were told he was fighting? I'm not saying, I'm saying it's food for thought.
Yeah. Well, we're all on a food for thought right now.
The victor always makes that. So I'm saying, so we don't really know. And so this AI stuff could go and take off and everything's going to change. And AI has changed a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things it's teaching now in the medical industry that it's intercepting faster than a human mind. There's a lot of history it's reopening and correcting. I mean, so we have to be really, it's a touchy subject, one that I really don't want to be involved with, to be honest with you. I'm just not ready to wrap my mind around it.
So here's another one, which I think Matthew might actually find fun to talk about too. And Jeff, since you're in the medical industry. Here's another food for thought, which is this is where my brain goes in the middle of the night. So when we have blood transfusion, because water holds memory, does our blood hold memory? So when we get blood from somebody else and their traumas now become ours?
Wasn't there water in blood, Jeff?
Yes.
No, not really, because it doesn't have. It has DNA, but it doesn't have memory because there's no cells in blood that are going to hold memories.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, scientifically, there's no cells in blood that would hold memory.
But it still holds energy. So it's the energy of that person through their blood. So I'm not saying that it's legit. I'm just doing food for thought. Like, could it still?
Yeah, we're just picking around. I was curious.
You know what I'm saying? Like, could it still?
Well, here, Jeff. Remember that show? Remember that show where people would die and they would like donate their heart, or it was done on one of those networks. Like some person got an arm transplant from a cadaver, and it was a young woman, and then all of a sudden she picked up that was like a movie, but she actually knew how to become a mechanic. She actually knew how to go in and look at tools, and she's like, I've never done this. And they interviewed her, and she's like, that's this sprocket, torque wrench. And she was going through it like, I don't know where this is coming from. And then they did a research on the body. They didn't give a name, but the network did the research on where the transplant, and they talked about that person in his life. He was a German engineer or car mechanic. So he worked on German cars, like, BMWs. That's what he specialized in. But now she knows how to do it and never came from that background, ever. So is that DNA memory because of flesh, or what? What do you think? What's your take?
Well, I mean,
or fake all that.
you can't code somebody else's DNA to your DNA.
Okay.
So as soon as, like, if you get a blood transfusion,
Okay.
As soon as that blood runs out, all that person's DNA is gone. You know, as soon as it cycles through your body.
So in other words, we kill off in a blood transfusion, we kill off their DNA.
Right.
As where our DNAs come together and create it when it's, when it's conception.
Right. Our DNA.
But if you add blood, then you can't.
That's my knowledge.
As of right now. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think, and I don't know if this is, if it's correct or not, but I don't think that if you were to test somebody's blood that got blood in a transfusion, you're going to see a trace of somebody else's DNA.
You think there would be a time frame? Do you think it'd be before being filtered? Like, what do you think? It's kind of weird, right? This is just
much research.
These
are topics I don't think I want to be involved in, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Well, I'll tell you guys to look up when we're done with the show, and anyone listening, there is a case like Troy was talking about with the arm transplant. There is an actual known case. It was pretty horrific, but a girl went in, and it was during the early testings of getting, and Jeff, I think you'll find it fascinating.
Blood cells die quickly, Matthew was talking about.
To get eye transplants, okay? And you can look it up, they actually have her photograph. She was one of the first to get a full set of eyes transplant, like both eyes transplant, okay?
Okay.
From a cadaver or a person that was willing to
do this with
I don't
know.
Organs.
I would be creeped out.
Hold
if you had
on.
somebody
Here's
else's
where,
eyes in your head, bro. I'm sorry.
But you can actually hear her story because
I'm looking into it.
Hear her story because it is like research her story. It's intense for her and her family. So after the surgery, everything seemed to be okay until she started seeing things in her vision, like in the room, and she thought they were ghosts. Like she actually physically started seeing things. She told her parents, she told her dad, nobody believed her. They told the doctors. The doctor said that's common. It's just the eyes situating with your brain and making the communication. It happens, blah, blah, blah.
Fair enough.
It got so bad that she started journaling what she was seeing. And in some cases, she actually was seeing what the doctors had said would have been what the person's eyes, that person was actually witnessing. So she was seeing, like in her own space, images of people that were from that person's life. And it tortured her so bad and nobody believed her. Her father ended up finding her in her bathroom and she had dug her own eyeballs out because nobody believed her.
And that sounds like to me, that sounds like a mental issue or the body fighting a foreign, fighting a parasite. Those eyes were a parasite to that body.
It also would depend on what type of blood product you got. So if it was whole blood, I think that the chances of DNA sticking around are more vis-a-vis the white blood cells. If it was like packed red cells, something like that, or plasma, you're not going to get any of the other person's DNA because it's not carried in those in the plasma medium or in the red blood cell itself. So, I mean, I suppose it could happen. Right. The question is it's got to be some kind of like almost a glitch where you a once in a billion chance when somehow the DNA before it disappears from your body fuses with your own. You follow what I mean?
Yeah. So what if it's like a life or death situation where you've bled out so much blood, like you are drained, you're dying, and you're getting a lot of transfusion put in? Then what?
You're still going to create your own blood eventually.
Your body is going to produce those cells eventually. So it might take a little bit longer. And if you were that drained of blood, chances are you're already dead. You know, you can only go so far.
Yeah, before there's no.
I don't know. It's always weird to me because the people that donate blood have to have like a background check, like a legitimate hardcore background check, not just normal everyday stuff. So that's
because they don't want drug use and stuff in the blood that you miss.
Well, and they do like hereditary and they do like different backgrounds of
lineage. Some blood that can cause cancer.
Yeah, if you give somebody
I get that
blood, they can certainly get a disease. You know.
I don't know. I was just curious.
But intelligence and conscious would be different.
I don't know how genetic diseases, if they would, things like sickle cell or Tay-Sachs, or I don't know how things like that would transfer over. But you really only have about, depending on if you're male or female, about 6 liters of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot.
Yeah.
But if you lose about half of that, you're pretty much already.
Me too, Samantha. Get that all the time. Yeah.
Well, here you go, Jeff. This reminds me of a story that was real, and I want to say there was a show. It was a TV show. Remember that show? Ice-T was in it for a little bit as a detective, and it was like a crime show.
SVU or whatever.
Yeah. Well, this man was a rapist. He was a skilled rapist, and he didn't realize that he had two separate DNA. So his semen was a different DNA than his blood.
Oh, I think we talked about that.
Yeah, and he was like raping and stuff, and he got caught, identified, and then released because they couldn't tie him to DNA. And when he realized it, he went around. They couldn't trace him no matter how much of that semen that he left behind. And then they finally caught him. He was caught eventually by the public, kind of like Richard Ramirez when he was in there raping old people and stuff. But
it was a piece of shit.
He was it. That guy was either. I watch his interviews. I like to watch his interviews and really study him because I just love behavior. But I believe he was too intelligent for his own good. Does that make sense? He was so far out there, dude. They said his IQ was so far out there that just normal everyday consciousness and having a conscience of hurting someone, he didn't even fathom it anymore.
Sure.
Like it was not there.
You get weighed down with invasive thoughts and stuff like that. Like
it's a disease.
Speaking of one who's hyper intelligent, hyperintelligence is not necessarily a gift. It can be really daunting and get you in a lot of trouble because it's hard to have a conversation with somebody. If you have 160 IQ and you're having a conversation with somebody with 105 IQ,
you can't.
Lack of understanding in between. There's a certain point where you are so in tune to things, I imagine, that you can't communicate. And that's got to drive people crazy because you can't get your point across to anybody. So somebody like that who's super intelligent, they said the same thing about like Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was off the charts IQ, and he was very typical, socially awkward.
Yeah, he had no emotional intelligence.
A reader,
no emotional intelligence. Yeah, he lacked emotional intelligence.
Exactly. His absolutely no emotional intelligence.
So in essence, it's when you think about them, they're born that way. Their chemicals are pouring wrong. I remember watching certain doctors talk about it, like, you have 5 cups, right? Goes into this tube and down into your brain. And when they pour the wrong way, or they all pour at the same time, the chemicals that combine change your whole persona. And some of these kids and some of these young people, like, I'm not saying what he did was good, but you could see by talking to him, he wasn't on the same planet. When they would ask him things, he would just smirk like, I can't believe you would, aren't we all this? You've had these thoughts. You're just too scared to move upon them. I mean, his mind was so far out. So, it's just watching Richard Ramirez, you could also tell, his eyes were jet black. That was one thing that was interesting. And I like the fact that you could tell he was so emotionally abused as a young person. And
that breaks people for sure.
Yeah. And then they said that he was highly intelligent, not on an emotional, not on a human being intelligence, but things that he could put together in his mind was more like, I can do this and get away with it because they can't catch me. Right. To that level, he already knew that. That's why he would go in he would have upside down crosses and pentagrams on his hand, and he would sit in court like this because he knew how to get in the minds of people and he didn't care and he didn't mind being put away. And was it his fault? People go, he's a piece of garbage. He should have died. Yes. But was it his fault that his brain was like that and they didn't catch it early? They didn't take him off the streets earlier. You know what I mean? We can see that now. We can see that.
Responsible for correcting your own problem. And I know it depends on the pathology of the person.
I agree.
I feel like people who are super intelligent also have this hubris that they think they're uncatchable. And they can't imagine that these dumb underlings, beneath them can catch them or figure out who they are.
Right.
And
he didn't get caught by the law. He got caught by the neighborhood who recognized him from TV, and that's it. That caught him. His image.
Oh, Ramirez? Yeah.
Yes.
He was a very distinct looking man too. He looked evil, actually.
Yes,
he did.
He had this evil look to him.
True.
And he didn't believe he was evil.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I like when he talked. He goes, there's always fights. He kept talking about in the universe. There's always a fight. Just watching him, and the guy's like, well, what I'm asking you is, he goes, well, you're not asking it correctly. I don't think you know how to ask me. And I thought that, I'm like, this guy, what are you going to do with this guy,
you're
bro?
asking the wrong questions. I don't want to give you an answer because you're asking the wrong
Yeah,
questions.
he just was smarter than the guy interviewing him. And it was just like, you know, it's like years ago during the Columbine shooting. I like what you said here, Matthew. That's true.
Yeah, I want to say something on that in just a minute.
The Columbine, when they tried to pin Marilyn Manson, and they're like, so parents think you're responsible for this. But he never talked about that in any of his music, by the way. He never talked about going and shooting up schools. That's horrible. And then he said, what would you have said to these kids? And he said, that's where your problem is. I wouldn't have said anything. I would have listened to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody didn't listen to them. And they didn't have anything to say after that. They're trying to pin it on a rock star. But he just said, I would have listened to him because I'm sorry, like him or love him. It's Marilyn Manson was an intelligent artist. He was intelligent enough to carry a conversation, no matter how he looked, and he proved that. And that's what I'm saying. There is intelligent people that also do much. You know, they're usually very creative and they're different. But Ramirez, watch the interviews with Ed Kemp. Or Ed Kemp or whatever.
Yeah,
he was fucking.
He was a goofy dude. He was just,
a giant. He was like a Sasquatch too, bro. Like this dude was like 6'7" or 6'9". I mean, he was a monster, dude. Big. And his mom just mentally abused him his whole life. And then one day he just fucking took her out.
Yeah, they
and then it caused him to hate women and the stuff. He killed all those women. But, it's just, so here we go again. Where's that? What's that DNA? You want that DNA? Do you want that transplant? I mean, you know what I mean? There's like, it'd be crazy to think about it. It'd have to be life and death at that situation for you to be like, yes, I'll accept blood from Richard Ramirez. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just.
You know who I think that if you were to catch, if they were to figure out exactly who he was, Zodiac is going to be a super hyper intelligent person.
Oh, sure. My God.
The Zodiac killer?
Yeah. He taunted the police and taunted the media. Mm-hmm. He's saying, I dare you to catch me. And that's that hubris that comes out with people who think they're so smart and so slick that they're going to get away with everything. It
was a game. They just want to be challenged.
Right. Exactly. Like you're boring me. My whole point is to play this game with you. It's cat and mouse. And that's what intelligent people do with people that they find unintelligent is they play with them. They toy with them and they cat and mouse. Not everybody, but.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're talking about, yes, on that level. Yeah, of course.
I'm talking about somebody who also is a little bit broken, not, and nobody understood, especially when somebody like that would have grown up in like the 40s, 50s, I guess. And, they didn't take kids aside who they thought were intelligent, had learning disability problems and say, hey, we're going to teach you in a different way, mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, that helped me a lot is that my parents recognized it, that I wasn't learning the way other kids were learning. And they took steps to ensure that I would,
right.
You know what I mean? Otherwise I'd be, doing whatever for a living and not what I'm doing now.
Right. Correct. No, that's true. So, Brittany, you want to touch on the autism is humanity evolving comment on that?
Yeah, because
he doesn't know how, and then we can keep moving down to some of them too.
Yeah, just because, and quickly, I actually agree with this. Is that so? It's like what you say, Troy, in the animal field is that sometimes our human involvement with animals hinders and hurts. Right, the natural evolution within certain animals that need to, you know what I mean? So it's people interacting.
Topic we'll get into.
Yeah, but it's still the control, right? So if you look back in history, when schools started to get implemented and we needed to start a structure to create weak minds and control, that's when more government started to come into play. People started to control. The problem is that we did have a high amount of children being born with higher IQs, autistic traits, or as some would say, like, oh, they're in a psych ward. They need to be put away, right? But it wasn't that they were trying. It was just that they didn't think the way everybody else thought. And they were trying to figure out, or maybe their kid was labeled in their school as like the trouble child. He can't sit still. He's a
that was Jeff. I'm just kidding. That was me too. I always got in trouble.
Right. But so for when these studies come up like this, look at the problem that happened. We had a hierarchy that was trying to control the masses of general public from removing the intelligence factor. Because if you have someone that's intelligent and willing to combat you to find the holes in the crap that you're trying to feed them, well, then you can't form this hierarchy of government because a society will outpower a government like that.
You can't control an intelligent person.
Exactly. So how do you get them to shut up? You remove them and you put them in these psych wards and you say, oh, these poor people, let's give them a label. They're autistic. They shouldn't be around. That's not normal. When in fact, like Matthew's saying from the study, it might have been our own programming in our own systems to evolve us for the next stage of our planet, for our atmosphere, for our environment, because we need the next step of thinkers, right? Not somebody being told what to do, but the next person who is thinking a little more.
Or you have to listen. That comes back to behavior, or even animal behavior. You have to learn autism. What's interesting to me is people who are over emotional and they keep vegetables alive that are born, and inside the womb that their life is going to be hell.
Well,
that is where, but it's not different. Hold on, it's not different. That's where humans step in, and then they step in and try to fix everything. As we're autistic, high functioning autism, they don't emotionally connect like that. Neither do animals. If they suspect that there's a problem with one of them in their troop, in their colony, they eradicate it. And they either get rid of it, even when it's born, they throw it out of the tree. They already know there's a problem. Now, if they were to harbor that and try to bring it, now they've contaminated for generations to come. Right or wrong, I'm not saying that human beings shouldn't give. Don't take what I said too deep. I'm just making a point. However, with high functioning autism, they don't view it that way. It's very like, that's not the way that's supposed to be. This is going to cause this in the long run.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Watch when you interview some of them. They're like, nope.
I agree
this
with that.
by
That's
year
what
20 will cause
about.
this. And that's what I mean. So I believe that they are evolution. And I think that that's a possibility that we're taking some of that over-encouraged human element out. What's that, Jeff?
I said, I think it's a partial possibility. I think the other factor is that in the early aughts, we were starting to recognize autism and it was starting to be diagnosed a lot more. Before that, they would just label it something else. They would label it, whatever the
ADHD, hyperactive children,
and learning disabilities, stuff like that. And now they're saying, okay, these are all things that are spectrum disorders. It's somewhere on the spectrum. So,
but I think but I think nowadays too, Jeff, and I mean, it's just my opinion. I think it's honestly way it's overused. Like, honestly, absolutely. So many people like that. Listen, I just don't like a flavor of this food and I have like sensory food issues, but I'm great on everything else. Oh, well, you're on the spectrum. It's like they want to give everything a label. You know what I mean? But I
think it's extremely over. They use it as a catch-all. We don't know what's wrong with this person, so let's just say they have a autistic spectrum disorder, and we'll call it that. And I see people I think I'm probably somewhere on the spectrum. I'm definitely a little aspy. There's no doubt about it. I lack some of those social filters to. Sometimes I don't think about what I say before I say it.
Right, like you don't care about the consequences
or offending. Sometimes I mean to offend, and that's a whole different disorder. But that's just me being an asshole. But I think that they take it and they have a whole bunch of stuff that they don't know how to categorize, and they put it in a big ball and they throw it into the spectrum disorder. Just to give you like a total unrelated example, when I was a kid, I had terrible stomach problems. I couldn't, eat anything spicy or acidic without having like reflux or problems. I'm talking like, late teens, early 20s. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they made me drink shit and put shit up my ass and all kinds of other crap. Mm-hmm. So until they said, well, we'll just call it irritable bowel syndrome. It's perfect because it covers such a long spectrum of digestive disorders that let's just throw it in there. And then we could tell, and people want to know what's wrong with them. They want to know why they're not feeling good. You can't just say, well, we don't know what's wrong with you. You're doctors. Figure it the fuck out.
We have to figure out, we have to do something and say we did it, and we have to stop this because, we're this, and that's how it always goes down.
I agree with that.
I just feel like when it comes to intelligence factors of children that are considered autistic is the label. And this goes back years and years and years. They were told to be put away, or they shouldn't be in this classroom. Now they have to go into a special classroom with other kids like them. Or if they can't conform to this normal society, then they don't belong in it. And I don't think that that's okay. And I think that in a sense, it was part of control. You can't control a very intelligent human being. And if we have a society of them, we have a problem. So we need to eliminate that now as quickly as possible so that gene doesn't keep evolving and we get
just so you know, not all of them are, super intelligent. Some of them are I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be an asshole right now, but listen, there's some true window lickers in that fucking field right there.
That's
so
not
I
what
understand
I'm
that too,
about.
but yes, I think.
But those are more like disabilities. That's how I would see it, more as disabilities in the makeup of the genetic.
Like the water boy.
Yes. But I'm saying that's like
Valancourt's boobies.
But listen, in that respect, I think that that's a disability.
It's the Croc show.
In how the baby was being formed and it wasn't getting the proper nutrients during birth. So there are birth defects and anomalies with those children, and it creates a disability. But when you have children that are completely normal, but their brain function is that far beyond, and they look at you and they question you and they're looking around and they challenge you from like 5 years old. That doesn't make them crazy.
No, it doesn't. That's not what I'm saying. And I think
I know you didn't.
You know how I feel about schools. It's highly indoctrinating, and they want everybody to be the same. And I don't believe we're all the same. I sat in the school system. Jeff was in the school system. And if they see something like me, hyperactive, I'm not going to do what you do. I've already memorized this whole book. Get it the fuck out of my face. Then you need to move me to a place. You need to move me to a place that I can excel, because you can talk. You got times my mom had to go to school and be like, well, you're teaching the same thing over and over and you're trying to dumb it down. And I was already bored. So you need to start challenging me. So they should take those kids and put them in more of a challenging environment instead 100%. Of and I'm Gen X. So it was a demeaning environment, right? It was like, we got to tell them they have to slow it down, sound out your vowels. Why? I can write that. Why? Right. Why do I have to sound it out? I don't want to sound it out or know how to do it. So, and I think there's that. And then you have, and you can tell a lot, by who we are. You can see us, and we're only where we want it. We that have that thought process called ADHD. And I don't want to dig in too deep into ADHD, hyper intelligence or heightened senses, because I'd like to get in that with Marissa from that medical side, because she's got some great studies that they have done about that and how valuable we were to populations before, because we were so heightened. We were actually looked at as hierarchy because we were able to see things coming before they happened. We could intercept threats. It was a lot different. But then you get into the Rockefellers. That's where that kind of all went to shit. But I want to say that indigenous people had their own way of using that type of gift, if you will, or burden, if you will. And there's some cool stuff with that throughout history. And I'd like to do an episode on that. And I'd like Marissa to be on that one.
And, Matthew said something when he said they used to call it special ed. They did. And they would take kids that they didn't understand why. With me, it was when I would do math, I got in trouble all the time for not showing my work, because everything was done here. And it wasn't done as like, if I was, let's say I was figuring out 17% of something, very quickly I go 10%, 5%, 2%, and put it all together. It's just the way my brain thinks, And instead of putting it on, you can't really put that on paper. So finally, luckily my parents were really, really in tune with my way of thinking, and they nurtured it, and they kept me out of going to remedial classes or going to the alternative high school,
because you didn't need it.
And thank God, because I probably, when they try to throttle you, that's when you get frustrated, and that's when people go in and shoot up schools or
100%
traffic. It's it's like, oh, well, they're in a normal class and they're not doing well. Let's dumb it down and put them in a remedial class where, even if they excel, they're still being so throttled and so bored. I guarantee you guys are the same as me, that when you look at the margins of any piece of notebook paper that we had in school, there's drawings and doodles and swirls and names and whatever.
All over mine.
Yeah, same. I
bored as shit.
I did that
the same
in
stuff.
Respiratory school, a couple years ago.
That's right, Daniel. That's right. Now I know why you work so much with animals.
Yeah.
Craig said, I feel you, Jeff.
No, I agree with you, Jeff. I agree with you.
True. It's that, and thank God we're finally starting to recognize it. And I think that they're pushing it a little bit. They're really trying to push it toward disorder. Oh, it's a spectrum disorder. It's not really.
And it's not. No, you're right.
It's a different way of thinking. Like if you put kids in certain situations in certain types of schools, back in my day, they used to be like, well, we're just playing into him, or we're coddling him.
They can be my nightmare too.
Right. If you look at like learning systems like Montessori and stuff like that, they let the kids more or less learn at their pace. So kids can go ahead, kids can fall behind, because you can't take 20 kids and try to teach them the same thing the same way.
Well, and it's true that they've proven scientifically that even like young boys and young girls, they learn differently. Like boys are more active than girls. Girls are able to sit longer than boys can because they're genetically not made to sit for that long without getting stir crazy. So like there are things that we're learning. Like we're learning now, but like going back to like special ed, like when you think about that and you think about it now,
you know what you think when you think special ed. If you're from my generation, when you think about special ed, it's like,
that's what I'm saying. Like I'm trying to say this PT, but I'm saying like
you don't have to say a PT. Welcome to the Motley Croc show. Brittany is not going to be PT.
But what I'm saying is like in a quick nutshell, it's like there could be a great advanced course and call it like advanced education or advanced course lessons for those kids, but also don't call out the other kids that aren't learning as quickly or might not have those strengths, right? I mean, like, because then those kids in class are like, what's wrong with me? Why do they get to have special education? I don't. Am I just dumb? And I don't think any child at any age should have to feel inadequate. No. And it also goes back to like Manson was saying, I wouldn't ask them anything. Manson I'd listen. Again? Yeah, I know, right? Marilyn Manson of saying I would listen. And that's the biggest problem is we aren't listening to these kids when they say, you know, I already know this and test me. I'll show you I already know it. Please don't make me repeat myself. You know what I mean?
And that's the
because they're frustrated. Exactly.
You want to take them and shake them, be like, you're not understanding what I'm telling you. I'm telling you straight up. You know, I know that 1 + 1 is 2. I just think of it differently. So if I come up with 2 at the end of the day, who cares how I came up with it?
But why not utilize those students who are advancing, right? Why not advance those students to say, let's tutor, let's help your fellow student and help them learn the process. Maybe the way that you learn this mathematic, like might help this student. You know what I mean? And give everybody a chance to succeed and not outcast people
and
or like make them not feel heard. Exactly. I'm so over it. I'm so, my son works on a whole different spectrum of level. And I have learned that and I am adapted to it. And I fight tooth and nail for him in school because I want more kids like him to feel important and adequate, but also helpful to their peers.
Yeah, because you got to figure 90% of the rest of those boys are putting their finger in their butt and having everybody smell their finger and telling them it's mint.
There's nothing wrong with putting a finger in.
He's just not gonna do that. We had those dumb kids on the bus. I'm like, why are you fucking sticking your finger in my face? And they're like, hey, after they shove their finger in. And these dumbass kids, look at them now. They're the ones I knew, they're either dead or never made it past prison by the time they were 19. So it's okay.
If you look at the kids that didn't make it from high school, the weird, hyper-intelligent kid now are doctors, lawyers, whatever. And the ones who are the popular, you know, not so smart kids are doing nothing. That, you know, they peaked in high school.
Yep.
You know, I didn't peak until I was in my 40s, man.
Yeah, we're still not. I don't think we peaked.
But you know,
I'm still not peaked yet. You're right.
But you know, I wonder though if we didn't repeat the same stupid stuff all the time through grade, and then if you look at college, the first years of college is like grade 13 and 14 of high school. So if we actually didn't repeat the same garbage over and over again, and each class was really an advancement of learning, so would we push these children whose brain, doesn't matter where they come from, whose brain is literally a sponge wanting to learn,
right? But
no one's giving them the time. And if we actually taught them and infiltrated that much of a challenge to the brain so young, would they all be high functioning children? Or would we, you know what I'm saying? Like we should challenge them.
We had all kinds of challenges back then.
By intelligence, first of all. That's the kind of people that CIA, NSA, whatever. That's the kind of people they go after in college. They look at this hyper intelligent learner. You know, he's great with computers, or he's good with numbers in his head. You know, and a lot of times they're morally moldable.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to say
there's
2 things I want to touch on, Jeff. Jeff will get it.
But yeah.
Jeff can understand this one. You can too, Brittany, but Jeff's still in the field with me. I'm trying to read Daniel, especially hands-on people like myself, learning from a book and all these paper tests, you know, absolutely not working out, but leaning with hands and made my learning. Yes. So learning was fun. Exactly. Matthew, I still to this day count numbers with dots. For me, I went to Calc 3 and degree in environmental science, climatology, and I was told you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this by now. In middle school, I did. My professor said, it works for you. Keep it going.
Exactly.
That's cool. Somebody supported you. But
that's awesome, Matt.
It is. It's really cool. For some reason, people have this thing that they've got to hold everybody back. I don't know if it's fear. There's nobody. I've never done that to anybody. If somebody comes to me and they want help and I know what I'm doing with it, I'll help them. I know Craig's the same way.
Absolutely.
Jeff's the same way. Flavio Morrissey. We're all like that, right? We could hoard a lot of our stuff. I have a lot of experience. I've been doing this
I've heard.
long time. Now, I'm willing to share. Right. And I'm willing to share what I know and how long I've been in this industry, still in it my whole fucking life. Right. So I watch all these newcomers come in the animal world and how they act. But why are we, and this is what I'm going to say. We give these morons, these overindulgent, emotional dipshits that get into the animal world, right? To where I'm at the zoo last year. I was talking with one of the curators of Tampa, just a really cool guy. We got and talked. And I see this young person walking by with a board with a bunch of rocks on it, some trees and sticks and all that, with a snake on it. I'm like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that, right? Thank you, Matthew. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, well, here's the new rules for, because every zoo belongs to a big cult. We all know what it is. I don't have to say it because I don't want to get shadow banned. Mm-hmm. Where the animals aren't allowed to be, touched anymore. They don't want any. Why? Why can't a young person or kid want to feel what a snake feels like and actually maybe take? Absolutely. I love letting two fingers kids feel the tortoise shell. And
they all feel
this, right? And they're like, "Wow!" I do that to them because if not, they're grabbing everything and they squeeze it because they're kids. So we always tell them, "Put your two fingers up." And you're allowed to go gently down this way, not against this pattern. This one you can go against one. This one you can't. The tortoise, it doesn't matter. You put your whole hand on it and feel. What's that feel like? And they're like, oh, it's kind of this, or it has lines. Count the lines. They don't want you doing that anymore because they think it's unfair for the animal. Because it's so fair to keep the animal in a cage to look at.
Right.
But it's unfair for him to do any ambassador work. So we get these groups of organizations, and what it comes down to finances. So if you're rich enough, you can make the rules. Right?
Yeah.
And that to me has always been a bother because I had the same conversation with Marissa, and I'll let you know. She'll tell you what her side of it is. We've got all these kids coming out of these academic programs that are so indoctrinated. They want to stop the American crocodiles from hybridizing with Morlet's crocodiles. It's happening naturally. It's been happening naturally. Right. Why are we trying to stop that? Because they know in evolution that crocodile is evolving to whatever that ecosystem is going to be. Because when you talk about saltwater crocs, everybody thinks porosus, but Americans are saltwater crocs, right? They nest. They're saltwater crocs, and the Morlets are freshwater crocs. But something's happening in Belize, right? But everybody wants to stop it. But every form of hybridization in the wild is not always man-introduced. It's not. It's natural. Right. The American crocs are hybridizing with them, and there's a thesis that one of her whatever it was, people she worked with, co-partner, student, whatever worked with, that you have to listen to about what she found out in all of her DNA and blood work on these animals and how far back and why we shouldn't be interfering with that type of stuff. And that to me is, again, oh, well, these kids are doing this. We got to stop it. Now, I could go back to Jeff and myself. Thank God there were people like Gene Simmons and other stuff that was actually giving us another outlet because they were like, be creative. Don't fucking have a gatekeeper. Stop. And it wasn't just, man. Right. It wasn't just religious. I write songs. I like music. I play instruments.
I like turtles.
But I was held back so bad. I do too. That's why I have some. I was held back to that because of the way that society was painted to look at people who liked rock music. And it started back with Elvis. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
That's
devil.
So anti-religious. You can't do that if you're not listening to Christ rock.
And how dare he wiggle his hips?
Right.
How dare you? Yeah.
There were things I wanted to pursue that I was stopped because of society. Right. And only a few of us made it through. That's why when I'm talking with Ricky Rocket and I'm like, dude, you don't understand, man. I loved it. Talking to Joey Belladonna from Anthrax, like, bro, you don't understand. You were the only voice we had. It was like everybody. And I tell people, go look at the album Among the Living. We're trying to look at Among the Living was a great album cover. And what the story was, it was like, you people don't see the forest for the trees. And then what happens with them is they get so ridiculed, not only by religious movements, but by government. Oh, they're too crazy. Yeah. We're not letting them perform. We're not going to let them perform here. Are you kidding me right now?
Control.
Right. And the labels that they were getting, we went through. And then it goes into all this other stuff like nowadays when kids are doing stuff. I understand there's things that are really idiocracy and you really shouldn't do it outside the privacy of your own home. But creative minds and people who want to expel into the world, you know, like I don't understand that, dude. Like, yes, you can't wear a dog collar as a human being butt naked and walk around a neighborhood on a leash. There's a line. Doesn't mean you can't do it in your yard around the pool. Fucking A, let's do it. If that's your thing, great. But there's a sense of, even animals don't outright certain situations and situations. You have to understand a situation. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that there could be other people or children you're influencing that don't need to be exposed to that yet. Right? Mommy, why is that dude walking a naked guy around there smacking his ass with it? Well, you need to be putting that out there for kids. Do it by your swimming pool. It's okay. But I'm just saying that
never do it again.
So there are some things that we shouldn't, like I shouldn't go out in public and be abrasive or, you know, scream about this or that. Just like a religious person shouldn't get a soapbox at a strike and scream at people in the cars. We're already stressed out and trying to go to work. We don't want to listen to your shit.
Hell, we're stressed if someone out comes to you, wake up.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Right. If someone comes to you, you want to learn about this, and you talk to them. I'm curious. That person is asking for you. That's not me going out there like, you got to like snakes. As much as I'd like to go stop Karen calls on alligators, because I think most of these people that come from somewhere else in the United States, not the southern United States where we all live with alligators, not us, but further up, come here and they're like, oh my God, there's an alligator in my lake back there. I can hardly, let me get my binoculars. Oh my God. It looks like it has, we have to call them. They come out. The alligator's just minding his business. He just came up for some air. He's killed.
I was going to say,
but I can't go out and stop it, man. You know what I mean, Matt? Like you know what I'm talking about in the zoo and all that stuff. You try to explain this to these morons. So as much as I would like to go out and do that, damn Northerners, the Yankees. Jeff's but Jeff is now he's a Southerner now.
I've been everywhere, man. Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest.
We got him in the South now. We got him in the South. He's a snake guy. We got him.
But he's an animal guy. I think that would be really interesting to do a show about it. A lot of this comes down to like, you know, hemispherical thinking. So like right brain versus left brain. You got your right path people who are creative, intuitive. They're what do they call it? Critical thinkers. And then you got your left path.
I love it.
Transition. I identify as a
no. He came to the South and he assimilated. It's all good.
I did assimilate, man.
I would too.
I bought a freaking big lifted Jeep and drove around in a swamp looking for pythons. So yeah, I definitely assimilated a little bit.
I'm used to it. I get it all the time, Matt. Look at me. I'm gonna catch shit for this next week in my messages for sure. So I get it.
It's those. You should almost have like two complete education systems for those two types of people.
I agree with that. I think that would help and keep them to themselves. Segregation.
Absolutely.
Not racist segregation, folks. And don't crop that and try to twist it. He said he believes in segregation. No, segregate each other then. If you should have the right mind thinkers here, and we'd be a lot better off. Let the left thinkers do their thing at their time and their speed.
Frustrated with the other one's method of learning. So like you can't take somebody who's like I just said the damn word too. Linear thinker. They think just in those straight lines the way we're supposed to think. You can't teach those people from a creative
to think linearly. 100%.
You
True, Jeff nailed it.
You know, it's there's nothing wrong with being a free thinker, but some people don't function well as a free thinker. They like to be told what to do and how to do it. You know, they can't do anything without instructions. They don't have that critical thinking mindset.
My mindset. Go ahead, Brittany. Add on that.
I was going to say, I wonder if they had been taught to critically think like that.
I don't know.
They were told not to.
You know,
maybe
critical thinking is really big.
We were told not to.
In my profession, specifically in respiratory, we're kind of left to our own devices. A lot of times there's not doctors around or mid-level providers. So we're taught to critically think, to say, all right, what does the patient need? Let's break this down here, here, and here. But I see a lot of people that just can't do it. You know, they'll pass school and they'll muddle their way through, you know, just taking an easy job, handing out meds or doing whatever, you know, and they hate situations like emergency trauma, you know, critical care, where they have to critically
think on their feet
in order to save a patient in the moment. They'd rather, you know, have somebody else say, okay, go do this to this patient. This patient needs this, instead of figuring it out on their own. So you really teach those people in two different ways, you know?
I mean, I guess that takes us back in human history of like hunter gatherers. You know what I mean? Like we We learned by paying attention to our people who was stronger in this area and stronger in this area, and we placed them where they belonged. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I agree with Troy and like giving those positions accurately when it comes to that, because even if you just look at going to space even or creating a rocket, you need multiple thinkers from different perspectives of the way that their brains work. Sure. In order to create a rocket. You need somebody who understands the numbers to get that rocket from point A to point B, but they might know how to draw it. So you're going to need an artist, a creative thinker artist who knows the dynamics of how to make a rocket to get to that, but doesn't understand the numbers aspect. But together, they're utilizing their tools, and we're making new leaps and bounds for our society. So it's like, I kind of wish our schools would teach that. Like, you have this, that's your strength. You have this, but together we can make an incredible, change or a difference, but we don't. It's like, well, you're isolated and you're a problem.
All the kids like you, which works in a way. I mean, because it keeps people from getting bored, and
specialized schooling.
I was always bored. They never entertained me to the point where I needed it. And I'm a visual learner. I like learning through PowerPoint, TV, movies, whatever, I need that visual stimulus.
Which is what we started out as humans. You have to visually be taught.
I can read. I just don't like to do it to learn.
Yeah. I'd much rather watch it too. Absolutely. I would much rather watch. I totally get that. And I was going to say, for me, we're in an hour and 21 minutes in, but I want to say, I use the term controlled chaos because I love to be around. Here's one of my superpowers for me. I don't care if you don't think or see things the way I do, but if you're fucking wacko like me, I'm going to sit in a room with you and learn as much as I can. Absolutely. I mean, me and Flavio together have been in situations that I don't even know how we ended up there. And I'm like, this is not real. And I think that for me, when you get too many organized thinkers and everything's organized, I begin to fail because I can't. So if this person thinks totally different than me, but they're out there, I'm learning something, they're learning something from me. So it's like, I love the chaos and the tension and being thrown at, because it challenges my brain.
We thrive in chaos. If I don't have stress in my life, I have to create it, because that's my comfort level, is to have that little bit of stress and chaos,
right?
And be hurried and rushed, because that's how I get things done. If I have all the time in the world, I'll sit around and procrastinate. If there's something that I really need to get done, I'll get up and do it.
Yeah.
And our schools need a better job of teaching history and the way they taught history in the past. Simplistic, and it's true, because we just talked about that too. They've made villains out of good people, and good people or villains good people, and I think that there's a lot of that too.
It's a giant piece of shit.
That's what they found out.
Well
later
said,
on.
Noah. Well said.
We teach woke PC version of American history in school day. Yeah, we should not. I think we should teach it as it was. The problem is when you shelter people way too much, it becomes an issue, because then when it really gets out, you're like, Dad, what the fuck? And they're like, well, I'm sorry you didn't know that, but this is how the world really works. That's right.
Yep.
You should teach them a little more fair. History should be taught correctly. Not anybody's ideology, but what really happened. Don't make this person a good person like Christopher Columbus, for example. Let's talk about what we really did with that. And I think that there's a lot of those changes are being made. I really believe they're being made right now.
Slowly. Slowly but surely.
Oh, there's Christopher Columbus, the American West.
Benjamin Franklin.
They left a lot of shit out. A lot of shit.
I mean, we really have to teach accurately without a bias opinion in the mix, just so that our children are better equipped and ready for society. Because things are not always going to be whitewashed in society for you to take in, and no one's going to care about your feelings. So you need to be prepared to have tough skin, know the realities of the world you lived in, what made America what it is, and be proud of it and stand up for it and learn from it. Like, don't make the same mistakes of our past. If we don't know what we did in the past, how are we supposed to fix it for the future and not make the same mistakes again? So when you remove these things from our history, we're just going to keep repeating the same stupid shit over and over again. But if we leave it in there, then we go, this is why we don't do this anymore. We need to fix this area and this area so we can make ourselves better as a society. We need to do that so our next generation is aware, but not raise pansies and be like, oh my God. I was told that this
you keep
was
saying
it.
the next generation. You must be talking about your kids, and Jeff's got kids, but the generation that's in between that right now.
Oh no,
there's
that
a lot,
one
there's
I
a
feel
lot
is-
there, bro. I'm not
I
sure.
feel that
I don't
whole
think we'd survive
area is
anything.
just
I'm going to another
doomed.
country if something happens because
Yeah,
I
I'm
got
living
to
on
I got to
a
be where I'm
boat.
going to live. You know.
Everybody.
I'm living on a boat. You can't find me, son. I'm living on a boat.
How does that saying go? Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That
has
quote
never
was
been
made
truer
for a
or
reason.
right,
Amen,
Matt.
Jeff. Amen.
And
Yeah.
But you have to, you can't let stuff like that be forgotten. Look at like the Holocaust or there's all kinds of just massacres and other things that
Yep.
people they forget. Things go
Yeah.
out now. The news cycles roll so fast that it's out of the news. It's out of our heads. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they create another, like I said, created fear. They create this whole hatred, manufactured fear, manufactured hatred. It's all done, dude, and they know it's in everybody's hand. Yep, it's one of the worst things, and we know it, right? We know it, Jeff.
I'm
So,
double stupid
sometimes
now.
I have to be self-disciplined.
They took a possible positive thing and found a way to destroy it and to destroy
I
a
like
society.
how you keep putting that
fast.
camera up there against yours. See that flashing up there at the top?
Yep, that's crazy.
You know what that is?
It's probably them fucking looking
They're
at
everything
spying
is
on me.
Everything is being recorded.
Yeah, they're
I gotta
spying on
cover it.
me.
Turn your front camera around,
The
Jeff. And you'll
slider?
see what I mean. Turn your front camera around. You see it flashing in there?
Mine stopped.
Oh,
Yep. It'll start flashing
They're
if you start,
listening.
when you start moving
Did
it
you
and certain
hear
things are
me?
saying, it'll start recording. It's weird.
Fix the history in
Yeah, it was really
school.
weird how it did that, right? You start seeing it, you're like, oh.
So I was listening to a podcast today. There was a guy talking about how every time he runs water in his house anywhere, he gets some kind of ad for like dish soap or shampoo or something like that comes up.
Exactly,
always
Noah.
listening.
That's freaking crazy.
That's a topic for the next show because there's so much about that, Jeff. It's insane. And
At least our joints won't hurt, Craig.
And I also learned on our Alexa how you can actually swipe, like there's a little swiping bar and you can turn off the camera so it can't see you because they were actually tapping in and watching you through the camera. So now there's like a little, and so mine swiped off all the time.
Well,
I mean, they still listen, but
they
strange.
pick up, it goes into bots and then they look at the way your house is designed and certain words that you use and then they sell to you that way. It's a selling, but I get that. I would close the camera too, but
I did. I closed it
I'm
up.
surprised I don't get ads for sex toys all the time with my liberal use of the word fuck because I probably
exactly right.
1,000
Exactly.
times a day.
If I talk about something, all of a sudden Alexa's like, "Have you tried the new?" I'm like, "What?"
Or have you noticed?
You can turn it off. You can turn it off.
Or have you noticed like your social media feeds all of a sudden have like advertisements for shit you were just talking about, and you're
exactly,
like,
Daniel.
What the hell? How did it know? I didn't type this into search. It's just listening.
changing
It's
phones.
listening. It's crazy.
Everything's lost.
A great device destroyed by man.
Well, we also know how to not let it destroy us, and we know how to I take time and I don't
Exactly.
get on it first thing in the morning. Like when I get up, I stop looking at my phone now. I'm doing that. That's my own thing because I would get up and I'd look at my phone for a minute. Next thing you know, I'm in fucking bed an hour looking at shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck this. So I just don't
Yeah.
even get up. I just force myself to do something else. And you know what? It's good. I never watch the news on any side. Don't care. Don't want to hear it. I only want to know what's going on with the weather so I can protect the animals. After that, I'm done. I don't want to hear about any other bullshit. If they press the button and we're all nuked, it's okay, as I won't know about it. I'll be out there watering my shoe, and I disappear. That's great.
Troy's like, here's Ollie with the weather. It's hot as hell. It just turns out.
Yep, that's it.
I'm good to know.
Hot as
I'm good
hell.
to know.
We're melting here.
It's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain.
Oh man, I see it. My lemurs, I'll be laying flat, but I've got a whole bunch of new stuff I got. It's just been really hot. I've been bringing them inside. Just
And we're not even in the
between
summer
11 and 2,
season.
11 and 3. It's fucking unreal out there.
Yep,
Unreal.
and it's not even summertime. What?
And then
the
when you
hell?
try to help some of them, like the kangaroos, I'm like, you're licking yourself, and you try to run the hose on them, and you think you went after them with a flame torch. They want to get, oh my God, it's water. Fuck. And so you got to kind of torture them a little bit and get them a little wet. You got to, because you got to make like simulate a rainstorm for them or something. It's just really hot.
Yeah, it's hot. It is really hot.
Now they're
right
equipped to
It's
handling it,
terrible.
but sometimes it's like, look, I see them in distress. We got to cool them down. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. I got you, Troy. Call me. I got weather for you. And they're in the background. They're okay. You got it. I'd like to talk to you too, Matt. We got to get together and chat again too. I haven't seen you in a while. We'll definitely get together. Thanks everybody coming out. We've been on an hour and a half. It's been good, Jeff. I'm glad you're able to get in. I know you updated your phone, and I'm like,
I had a lot to say.
I was texting, and I'm like, fuck it.
It was
got to get
going
this.
to. I
He's
bought
stuck.
a phone today,
Right.
and it was updating, and I was trying to transfer phone to phone, which did not work
Oh.
well. So I finally just went to the cloud, but now none of my apps are on my new phone, so I got to transfer everything else. It's a nightmare.
They should come. Mine always come like the next day. Like when I use the
it's
cloud,
like-
I'm like, oh, and it goes boop, and it starts
I'm
popping
late.
up, and you're like, I didn't download that.
I know. Now I got AI in the palm of my hand, man. I'm gonna make some deep fakes of myself doing really cool
Oh,
shit.
it's gonna get real scary with Jeff. Everybody,
It's
watch
gonna
out
get
now.
Real period.
He's gonna
Everybody
be doing
watch
the
out now.
extreme fakes.
Yeah. No.
But yeah,
think so,
guys.
man. I'm
As always, we're glad to have everybody come in and comment, and thanks for hanging out with us. This show, I know a lot of people. The show is not done for whatever profit it's not. This is just for us to have a good time with you, interact, and blow off some steam. And I appreciate you coming out. You've been really good, and I think that's really awesome. So I really want to appreciate everybody for coming out tonight with us and spending time and engaging. Again, we love you. We'll see you next week.
See you next.
Have a great
Thursday.
time, and we'll be here. All right. Good night, and have a good one.
Good night, everybody.